Hello guys, I hope all of you are doing well and I welcome all of you to today's podcast. Right guys, we'll again today discuss 5 drugs of choice as well as I'll discuss one common concern today also. Right, so let's begin straight away guys. The first disorder is a leukemia, ALL, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, which is, as all of you know, is a childhood leukemia, right? So there is no single drug of choice for ALL, but there is a regimen that is preferred, and that regimen is called as VPAD. VPAD, V for vincristine, P for prednisolone, A for asparginase, it is an enzyme, and D for daunorubicin. Right guys, so it's easier to remember if you remember it as VPAD, and then the drugs will follow. Now here the MCQs that they can ask you mostly, see, they have never asked you about the regimen, but they have asked you regarding the single drugs. For example, what is the use of asparginase? So asparginase is used in ALL, acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Nevertheless, remember the name of the regimen as well. VPAD is the regimen where we have 4 drugs for treatment of ALL or acute lymphoblastic leukemia. The second one guys today is also a leukemia, but it is AML, acute myelogenous leukemia, right? In acute myelogenous leukemia, we use 2 drug combination. 2 drugs are combined. One of them is an anti-tumor antibiotic, which can be either daunorubicin or idarubicin, and that is combined with cytarabine or Ara-C. Right. So again, I'll repeat, for acute myelogenous leukemia, your treatment of choice is daunorubicin or idarubicin plus cytarabine, which is also known as Ara-C. Now, daunorubicin, idarubicin are not very frequently asked in our exams. In fact, they have never been asked specifically. But cytarabine, it has been asked twice. And the 2 things, I'll tell you what they had asked you. How is cytarabine given? Guys, it is given by continuous intravenous infusion because it is a very short-acting drug. One thing. Second thing they had asked you is cerebellar toxicity is caused by which anti-cancer drug, right? So cerebellar toxicity like ataxia, dysarthria can be caused by cytarabine. In fact, cytarabine can also cause cerebral toxicity. Cerebral toxicity in the form of dementia can also be seen with cytarabine. Let's move on to our third disorder today, Alzheimer's disease. So, you know, Alzheimer's disease is a neurodegenerative disorder, and the drug of choice for Alzheimer's guys is donepezil. Donepezil, which is effective across all the severities of Alzheimer's, be it mild, moderate or severe, does not matter. And you know guys, donepezil is a cholinergic drug, right, or parasympathomimetic drug. And you know there are 2 other cholinergics like rivastigmine and galantamine, but they are not drug of choice because they are only effective in mild to moderate disorder. A second class of, or in fact the only other class of drug which is FDA approved for Alzheimer's is memantine. Memantine, which is an NMDA antagonist, and it can be used as an add-on to donepezil. So donepezil is my drug of choice. If patient does not respond to donepezil, I can add memantine, which is an NMDA antagonist. Right, so these are 2 drugs which are commonly asked, donepezil and memantine, for treatment of Alzheimer's disease. Moving on to the 4th disorder for today. Guys, the disorder is amoebiasis. And amoebiasis is every next year they do ask you in at least one of the exams. And amoebiasis, guys, I can classify broadly as intestinal or luminal and extra-intestinal. Now, intestinal or luminal can be asymptomatic or it can be symptomatic. Coming to the first one, if it is a case of asymptomatic intestinal or luminal amoebiasis, in that case, guys, your drug of choice is oral paromomycin, right? It is an aminoglycoside which is given by oral route. So oral paromomycin is the drug of choice. Alternatives are drugs like daloxanide furoate and iodoquinol. Whereas if it is a case of extra-intestinal amoebiasis or intestinal symptomatic amoebiasis, then the drug of choice is metronidazole, which has been asked a lot of times. If it is a case of only hepatic amoebiasis, only involvement of liver, in that case you can also use chloroquine. So remember, chloroquine is only used in hepatic amoebiasis. So guys, I'll summarize once again. If it is a case of intestinal asymptomatic amoebiasis, your drug of choice is paromomycin. If it is symptomatic intestinal or extra-intestinal, my drug of choice is metronidazole. Coming guys now to the last disorder for today It's a disorder called as ALS, or amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Now the drug of choice for this drug for many years, it has been Riluzole. Riluzole in fact was the only available drug for this class until few years back. And guys, Riluzole, how does it act? It is a glutamate antagonist. So guys, you might be thinking how glutamate antagonism helps in amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. See, what happens is neurodegenerative disorders, be it amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, be it Parkinson's disease, or be it Alzheimer's disease, the primary cause is free radical injury to the neurons in the brain. And who is behind these free radical generation? Guys, these are your excitatory neurotransmitters like glutamate, right? So that is why I antagonize glutamate here. Now you'll be able to understand more when I tell you the recently approved drug by FDA for ALS. All of you might be aware of this. It has been asked once in AIMS, once in JIPMA. That drug is edaravone. Edaravone is a new drug approved for ALS, and this drug edaravone, guys, is a free radical scavenger, right? So it binds to free radicals, scavenges free radicals. So edaravone has been asked. Now remember the last thing, in amyotrophic lateral sclerosis there is muscle spasticity, and for this muscle spasticity, for symptomatic management, I can give a muscle relaxant called as baclofen. So guys, all in all, ALS drug of choice is Riluzole, new drug is edaravone, symptomatic management of muscle spasticity is baclofen, which is a GABA B agonist, GABA B receptor agonist. So guys, these are the drugs I had to discuss for today. And now I'll discuss one common concern that students, they ask me as doubt is the question goes like this: can I do well in the exam without adequate MCQ practice? Now guys, before going into the details, I'll tell you straightforward, my answer is no, a big no. Why? Because the exam is MCQ based. It's not a theoretical exam. It's not a viva exam, guys, right? So until and unless you practice MCQs, and a lot of MCQs, you do not stand a chance to get a good rank. Why? Because see, your preparation should be 50 to 60% theory and 40 to 50% MCQ practice. In fact, inadequate MCQ practice is an important reason for failure of many good students I've seen through many years, right? So please practice good enough amount of MCQs if you don't want to be in the list of those good students who prepared well, who are very much knowledgeable, but they could not get a rank because they did not practice enough MCQs. Right guys, so I hope this would have helped to clear the air that not practicing enough MCQs can have a big impact, right? Negative impact on your result. So that's all for today guys. Happy learning. Take care. Bye-bye. This was Dr. Ranjan with you.